Barnard College is the preeminent women's college in the country, and we're dedicated to celebrating women's excellence in all its forms. I'm Sion Bylock, the president of Barnard. On behalf of the entire Barnard community, I'm so proud to welcome you to the 11th annual Athena Film Festival, a true celebration of women and leadership. The spirit of the festival reflects Barnard's legacy of supporting women and giving them the academic and community resources they need to become leaders in all fields and industries. Alums who have dared to make their mark on the world like activists Grace Lee Boggs, Shirley Adelson Siegel, and Connie Hess-Williams. Storytellers like Zora Neale Hurston, Anna Quinlan, and Greta Gerwig, and scientists such as Margaret Mead, Helen Rainey, and Jackie Barton. Today, we continue to support our current students as they prepare to emerge as the next generation of courageous and audacious leaders. Barnard is so proud to be the home of the Athena Film Festival, so sit back and enjoy the show. Barnard College and the Athena Film Festival are here to amplify and celebrate these awesome stories.
Hello, honeys!
Hi, I think you're muted. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hello and welcome. We will take two. My name is Linda Bell, and I'm the Provost and Dean of the Faculty at Barnard College. On behalf of Barnard College and Women in Hollywood, it is my honor to welcome you to the 11th Annual Athena Film Festival. This festival is dedicated to celebrating the stories of bold, courageous women leaders and the filmmakers who bring these stories to life. Thank you for joining us. This year's festival would not be possible without the support of our dedicated sponsors. Please join me in thanking Athena's founding sponsor, the Artemis Rising Foundation, and its CEO and founder, Regina K. Scully, whose visionary leadership makes our work possible. And a special thank you as well to our premier level sponsor, the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, which shares our commitment to showcasing stories of women in science. To all of our sponsors whose names you will see before each film and event, thank you for your commitment to challenging our culture to be more inclusive and inspiring audiences in the process. It is my honor to introduce this conversation with featured Barnard filmmakers. Produced in partnership with Barnard's Sloate Media Center, this conversation brings together filmmakers from the class of 2020 to share an update, discuss how their projects have been impacted by COVID and to engage heartily with our audience. I am pleased to introduce the moderator for this conversation, Emily Robinson. Emily is an actor, writer, and director whose credits include 8th Grade, Transparent, and Oleander, a short film screening at Athena this very year. Robinson graduated from Columbia this past fall with a degree in creative writing. Emily, I turn it over to you.
Thank you. Hi. Welcome, Cleo and Nomi. Cleo, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit first and tell us about your film?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Cleo Yang. I'm the writer and director of this work in progress that you'll be seeing, The Mirror Next Door, which is about two young Black women searching for a human connection in the age of heavily digital social media, basically. And I graduated from Barnard College last May. I'm a class of 2020 with the BA in film. And now I'm a MFA candidate at the University of Central Florida, making feature films.
Amazing, thank you. And Nomi, welcome. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and your film?
Hi, I'm Nomi Fox-Dichter. I wrote and directed Birdies, which, same as Cleo, is a work in progress. And I also graduated from Barnard last May 2020. I majored in film and physics, and Birdies is a short film focusing on a closeted older woman who goes bird watching and encounters two non-closeted younger people while bird watching. And right now I am working freelance in the film industry, and currently I am a production assistant on a new HBO show.
Amazing. Thank you. I know that both of your films are works in progress, but they're so insightful and special. And I guess I'm just wondering, before we kind of get into the process of it, how did you know that these were the stories that you wanted to tell? And when did the process of writing them or conceiving them sort of start for both of you? Cleo, if you want to start.
Yeah, sure. Actually, the story of The Mirror Next Door got inspired from disturbing real life events. So there were news of young women being social media copycatted, both in the UK and in China. So basically they were stalked by other people, and the other people replicate all the contents that they post on their social media and pretend to be their own. So that was initially the idea of this short film, and my protagonist was the person that copycatted other people because I wanted to get into her mindset and see how she ended up doing these things. And this film was really accumulated over my experience at Barnard, because the script was initially developed as an assignment for my screenwriting class as a non-dialogue script, which means the kind of exercises writers would do, you don't write dialogues but only actions in the script. And it kind of built from there. And when the Barnard Media Center Emergent Filmmakers Mentorship program opened their call, I submitted the idea in the script, and I was lucky to get selected as Nomi, and it kind of rolled from there.
Very cool.
For mine, I've always been drawn to writing short film scripts that revolve around either a single moment or a single time frame. And I think one of the most interesting dynamics that I could imagine seeing portrayed on screen is the dynamics between someone who doesn't fully understand themselves, how they identify in terms of who they're attracted to, along with someone who is more sure. And I think that is such a great interaction that breeds a lot of dramatic moments, and it is one of the types of stories that I think is best told cinematically, because it's concentrates on like the dissonance between what one might be thinking in their head versus how they're acting out. And I'm actually very inspired by stories like 8th Grade, because most of the stuff that I write is the main characters are either on the older side of how we interpret or how we see a lot of female sexuality in media, or on the much younger side. So I'm very drawn to these two like very different age groups of how they understand their own identities.
Very, very, thank you. There was actually a question from the audience about the star of Birdies. How did you find her?
So I just want to preface by saying it's very much a work in progress. It is not even picture locked, but I'll get into that later. But thank you. I found her through Backstage.com. I made a free profile using an NYU access link that is pretty easy to find online. And so I got a free posting, and she was one of the people who responded, and I was drawn to her because she's actually a Barnard alum herself. So it was very fun to have her come back, and we did rehearsals in the Milstein Center, and it was very fun trying to work through this character with her.
And what was the like auditioning process or casting process like for the rest of your cast?
Oh, for my cast, I really wanted to have people from Barnard, so I didn't post on Backstage, and I post on some Barnard Facebook groups, and I took people who were interested, and I printed out a scene of them two talking together, and I had people audition in the lobby of Milstein. This whole thing came together in the lobby of Milstein, basically. And I'm very happy with how my two actresses interacted with the older actress, and I really loved their dynamic in working with them.
Thank you. And Cleo, what was the process like for you?
Not very different. I mainly utilized it's the Barnard Theater Department had a mailing list that goes out to actors and actresses. And so I reach out to them and send out my cast call. And it was just a little fun audition in like on campus, and then sometimes I have to go to my like potential cast, like basically all over campus. And my project's like very much a Barnard teamwork.
So you both were in the Barnard Mentorship program. So what was that experience like, and what did that really look like practically? Nomi, do you want to start? Or I guess you just started, so maybe Cleo, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah. It was a very supportive and collaborative opportunity, I would say. I think there were 3 of us in our cohort. That was the semester of fall 2019, I believe. So basically, there was me and Nomi and Inem, the 3 of us. We each have a short film idea, and we were like sitting down together at the very beginning of our development. Like we went through several workshops on refining our scripts, developing our ideas, and pre-production. Just really, I think we met like weekly after we got selected to really bring in that process of like pre-production, production. We didn't really get to post because that's when COVID and other like events hit. And we were helping out on each other's set as well. I was on Nomi's set, Nomi was on mine, and so did Inem, but I don't think she got to shoot her film. I'm not completely sure, but unfortunately, I think that kind of fell through because of COVID and everything. And so, yeah, I think we're all very involved in each other's project, like giving feedbacks all the time. And when Nomi had the rehearsal at the Milstein Center, with her cast. I was there as well, and it was a really fun experience. I can attest to that.
The best part of, I think, about the whole program was, I think, when we had like almost final versions of our scripts and we printed them out and brought them to one of our weekly meetings, and we acted them out with each other as the actors and would practice directing on the other people in the cohort. And that was so interesting to like, how would Cleo direct mine and how would I direct Cleo? And it really at least helped us figuring out like more of what our directorial voice was, in addition to how to do a good job on our things.
Very cool. So when did you end up filming, and when did post-production start for both of you? Like was it seems like it was staggered when you were all filming, obviously, because you can't film at the same time if you're working on each other's sets. Naomi, do you want to start with this one?
Sure. So I filmed mine over the course of 3 or 4 days. I don't really remember, but I started in December, right before winter break. And then I was supposed to be 2 days, and then one day had a scheduling conflict. So, and there was other stuff happening in December. And so it got pushed back to after spring break. And then it was, after winter break, and it was hard to get everybody together. So the last day of shooting for me was actually, I'm pretty sure, March 8th last year.
Wow.
So that was just in time.
And
so for me, I was lucky enough to schedule my shoot earlier. It was the Thanksgiving holiday of 2019, I think. I'm very grateful that everybody, the cast and crew, agreed to stay to film instead of going back home for holiday. I know it's a very big compromise. And it was a 2 days full schedule. And we were kind of falling behind the first day and had to rush through a few things the second day. But just because I know building the set, building their rooms would cause a lot of time and energies, and I couldn't afford just to add another full day of shooting. So I decided to wrap on the second day. And I think I'm pretty happy with what we had covered.
It's funny, there was an audience question about The Mirror Next Door, or not a question, more of a comment, talking about sort of the line between like the depiction of online stalking and sort of, I guess, a friendship crush, which I wonder if almost because of the pandemic, if the ways that we engage with each other and the way that isolation, or I'm not phrasing this well, but I'm wondering if the pandemic has changed the way that like connection is seen in like the boundaries that people have, and if it's affected the way that you think about the story, or if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely a valuable comment, because before this event, I have been thinking, because the story was very much born before COVID, and I have been entertaining the idea of isolation and the desolation that get connected to it ever since. So it's interesting to me, just because I myself was so immersed in my original idea that I wanted to picture it as a stalking, but also it's kind of a dilemma between Asa wanting to befriend Eve and Asa not knowing what to do. So she's kind of like infringing on the things that she shouldn't be doing. But I also understand that the audience might just take a completely different take. Just because I bury my head in my story doesn't mean that the audience can't have other versions of reading to it. So I'm actually very interested in knowing what people think and feel and what's their read on the story. And I think it's definitely valid that if you see it as more like a befriending gesture that Asa has been doing, and I did intend for the film to end on a warmer note, that they actually are building the connection in a healthier way.
Thank you. So we have a few audience questions. One was just about the transition to post-production during COVID. What was that like? And also how was your experience in post-production? I know that you're still in it and it still is a work in progress for you both, but how has that been going and how has it changed? And, yeah. Nomi, do you want to start with this one?
Sure. So I started post-production at the very beginning of COVID, and I'm very used to a more disordered way of editing, which is I edit something and then I realize what I could have done differently, and I do my best. It obviously doesn't happen all the time to go back and fix it by filming more. And this COVID really opened my eyes to how not great of a editing style that is. But I think the main difference was not being able to use the computers and the programs in the Milstein Center. So I had to adapt to using older programs that I had on my personal computer that didn't really support the file size. So it was definitely a lot more slow going because of COVID.
For me, it was definitely a pain during pretty much from May to August last year, I would say, because I'm an international student and I had to move out of Barnard housing upon graduation and everything. And because I couldn't fly home, there was just a lot of logistical questions that I had to answer during that time. So all that I could do for this project was to log all the footage that I have and take notes in terms of basically making a spreadsheet of what I have shot, what audio do I have, which takes look good or bad and whatnot, things like that. And that was lagging until in August I finally got enrolled in my graduate program and basically have a roof to stay under, settle in, and started editing. So yeah, I would really say COVID kind of delayed my editing process, but also because The Mirror Next Door is a story about isolation, I guess it makes sense to have experienced that temporariness, that enclosement, and then come back to the story and be able to edit that and bring out that mood. So it's I would say it works both ways. It's obviously unfortunate that things hit upon, but also I guess it's just refreshes your experience in terms of making connections with people and losing connections.
Thank you. Clearly there were the world presented challenges, but I'm also curious about some of the highlights of your production, post-production, and filming, any part of the process that really stuck out to you. I would love to know any of your favorite moments from the experience. Nomi, if you want to start.
Favorite moments of the experience in pre-production or post-production?
Or production. Any, if there was a moment on set or anything that was just something.
Cool. So I think definitely the most new part, novel part, exciting part was pre-production, I think, mostly because we got so much support, so much more support than I've ever had to make a film. And it was really fun to see how, in your mind, production is when the film actually is made. And then getting so much into pre-production really helped me shift my focus to see how all these different parts interact. And especially, as I said before, doing the rehearsals in Milstein it made me see how to make a film in such a different way than I usually do.
Highlight in production for me was definitely having a wonderful, wonderful team of cast and crew, and most of them are Barnard women, both current students and alums. And yeah, it was like everybody was just full on board. I know it was a kind of tight schedule, and I was asking a lot of things as the director and the producer at the same time. So while I was being, like the time master saying, we have to get this going, have to get this covered, and they are just like throwing themselves in and really giving their best. I think that was really, really amazing, and I can't appreciate it more. I know that you don't always encounter a set like that, and I was so, so glad that it worked out. And also such a relief. And the same with Nomi said. And when we're there, I felt like we just had the freedom to experience what we do. I feel like also the actors are at comfort in terms of what they can act and how they're allowed to like improvise and change what they're doing just through the filming process, just because it's a very comfortable environment for them to do that, and also for the crew as well. So I think that part was really cool. And another thing would be obviously the support we got from the Barnard Media staff. A big shout out to Rachel, Jocelyn, and also Ruby, who was my mentor, but she moved on to pursue her own film degree now. We actually had built a whole backstory of Asa during pre-production, that she was this child soldier who got rescued, and hence explained her trauma in the middle of the film, where she had the kind of nightmare and there was like war zone sound going on and all that. But we really did extensive researching and workshop on that. But eventually during post-production, after hearing from Rachel and Jocelyn, I decided to take that off, just because it didn't really work well. And I felt like from the audience point of view, it might just be better if we leave that blank to their imagination. And I just think this is something that I wouldn't have think of if I was like working on my own. So having this community really help input the advices that I wouldn't think of on myself. And I think it really helped shape the story better.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds really special to have that sort of like community support and mentorship. I guess looking back at this, there's an audience question about this. Like, what advice would you give to other like Barnard filmmakers looking to produce their own short films? Nomi, do you want to?
My advice would definitely be to utilize all the different communities at Barnard and Columbia to like pull your either cast or crew member from. Definitely, like as Cleo said, reaching out to different like theater programs, or there's just so many talented people at schools who will elevate your project so much more than what you could do it alone. And secondly, I think this is so underrated for most student short films, but really putting a lot of effort into sound recording on set. I'm really sad I never got to do any of the sound design post-production. But since we had a budget for this, the biggest part of my budget was the sound people. And I think that now I have all these great clips that I can't wait to use of bird noises, and like you can really hear so clearly when people are talking, for most of them in mine. But that was one thing that I really wish I've done for every film I've ever made, is have just putting all my effort into sound design.
I have a few advice, I would say. The first one would be, if you want to produce your short film, definitely get a taste of it ahead by working on other people's sets, because you immediately have an idea of how that's going to be like when everything is running. And I know you will find plenty of opportunities like at the Barnard Columbia community. And I know that with COVID, it might look a little different, but like, I mean, both me and Nomi's films featured very familiar locations for Barnard students. You know, it's like around near the campus. And I think there's no shame in doing filmings like in familiar locations, like at home, even during quarantine, even. Just do that. Like, I would say don't overplan and just get into it is important. And the second advice would be try not to wear too many hats on yourself at the same time, because that's what I felt I have done even for this film. Although I had very extensive support from all these people. Like I said, I was like writing, directing, somehow producing. I had a PA who helped me dress the set, but I was also kind of directing art in that matter. And now thinking back to it, I kind of wish I had more time with my actors when I was on set, even though I had rehearsals beforehand. I think it would really be helpful if you get to focus on what's in the frame instead of worrying about a lot of other things that can be going on, like behind the scene.
Absolutely. Nomi, I know that you mentioned that you're excited to look at some of the sound recordings and such, but because both of these films are works in progress, I'm just curious if there are specific things that you're excited to go back to or to work on next. Nomi, do you want to? Yeah.
I am so excited to get picture locked. I was very grateful a few months ago. Rachel and Jocelyn really helped me figure out how to like tame these huge files that I had decided to store all of my data in. This I guess goes back to advice for filmmakers, but never shoot in 4K and never shoot in RAW and never do it at the same time because you will not be able to edit it, which is the hole that I'm in right now. So yeah, it completely crashed my computer, but I am very excited to play with like the timing and letting some of the lines breathe more in my film. And I really just put things in right now as like, this is exactly what the plot is and what the script is. I just wanted to make sure people were able to tell what was happening. But I can't wait to like go back and like look at it and think, okay, I could put a silence here, or I can put like just like the faintest bird noise in the background here and nobody's talking. And so I'm mainly excited to just go back and look at where do people not need to be talking and see how that changes how my film is perceived.
For me, it was more of sound designing. It is definitely very significant. And as you were watching the work in progress, you could probably like notice the noise in the background and things like that. So there are some like detailed works that need to be done in there. And then I'm also looking to kind of trim down the story even more. I think the first rough cut I had was like 17 minutes, and the director's hat, like when I put on the director's hat, I would be like, I shot all this amazing footage. I want to be able to use them all, and I want to squeeze them in the film. And then the editor's hat of me would be like, no, don't do that. So I kind of I was wondering if the audience can actually give feedback on how they feel about the pacing and the timing of the story and of the film, because I'm really, really looking to bring fresher eyes to help me take a look and really help me focus on the action and reaction in the film instead of all the redundant materials, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. There was just an audience question about like, were there any films specifically that inspired both of you or artists that inspired these works, or anything that you've been, I guess, watching that I'm also curious if the pandemic has changed your like what you've been watching or what you want to make, and how you view the role of film. Nomi, do you want to?
Sure. Sorry. I think I am oftentimes very inspired by what actors' performances I see, more so than any director or cinematographer, even though I'm more interested in directing and cinematography. But recently, what I've been really looking back at and considering is stories like the ones that Catherine Hahn appears in, of these older women, obviously not the same age group as my actress, but those like older women who are seen as like past their prime sexually, and they're shown in ways that are very like exploring what their sexuality means to them. I love her performances in I Love Dick, a series, and another series, Mrs. Fletcher, which is more recent. And I just can't get enough of her performances. And those are two definite things where if it's always my go-to answer if people ask me what is something that you wish you had made.
Gotta love Catherine Hahn, Cleo.
That's really interesting because when I was at Barnard, I started working on a script that featured a protagonist who was also an older woman, and I was like craving for more inspirations of kind of characters, and that was very inspiring to hear. For me, I'm looking at the audience question, and I haven't seen Ingrid Goes West. I would be thrilled to see it, so thanks for the suggestion. I was very much inspired by Kelly Reichardt's style when I was filming The Mirror Next Door, especially Certain Women, which is my all-time favorite. That basically tells this like 3 separate stories of like basically the everyday life of 3 strong women, and then you had very extensive time on-screen time that you are just alone. Like the audience are alone with the characters, and you get into their mind very easily. And it's just a very gentle, heartfelt, and soothing style that I'm aiming for. And I'm also like keeping in mind for like the more modern social critiques kind of films and TVs like Black Mirror, stuff like that. And recently, because I'm in the MFA program that requires the production of a feature-length film, I'm working on that right now, and my current project is leaning more towards personal essay film, documentary, and experimental strategies. And my current work's about the basically anime merchandise collecting among the Northeast Asian young women as a trend of hobby, and by like through interviews and personal reflections and staged performances, I want to bring out that experience. So I've been really watching like essay films, experimental stuff lately. Yeah.
That's so exciting and amazing. Thank you. I think we're like just about out of time, but if either of you have any last things that you want to say, now's the time. Well, thank you. Oh,
yeah, I would just say while you're at Barnard, really utilize this very tightly, like this supportive and closely tied community, because you don't get that kind of experience a lot elsewhere, especially with the resources easily at hand right now. So definitely be on the lookout for that and appreciate that. I feel like I could have done that more when I was at Barnard.
Thank you both so much. I wish we had more time. There are more questions, but that was amazing. And thank you for sharing your films with us. I can't wait to see where they go and what you both make next. So very exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.